last of the flock of private jets will be departing Davos now, flying rats of the fourth industrial revolution, pumping out their tons of CO2 that don't matter because they're rich and above the law, carrying self-anointed world leaders and CEOs, mostly travelling solo, one private jet each, high above the common herd and oblivious to our cares. It's a fitting image, hypocrisy with wings, do as I say and not as I do, them up there and us down here. Like self-styled gods, inhabitants of a new Olympus built for BlackRock, Raytheon, Google and the like. They're lethally curious about what we get up to, but utterly casual in their approach to our lives, indeed whether or not we have lives. We're being dictated to, having our futures planned for us without our consent by a protected parasite class that regards the mass of the world's population with out-and-out contempt, dots on spreadsheets. Beware of false prophets, for they shall make money in our name. Where before there might have been a pretence that our opinions mattered, that the will of the people was sovereign, now we are shown that the powerful will do as they please while we pay for it and keep our mouths shut. The powerful declare never-ending wars, hand vast sums of our money to others of their kind to do with as they please. They tax us only to impoverish us. Malign ghosts of the past, ex-Prime Minister Tony Blair and the like, plot with ghouls of the present in the World Economic Forum and elsewhere to watch us around the clock and so have the final say on everything we do, and for all time, as it turns out. Last week, both Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Defence Secretary Grant Shapps spoke about how Britain was committed to supporting Ukraine in its war against Russia for 100 years or more. Oh, do you think so, lads? Did you get that? 100 years or more of having our pockets picked by the state and the cash invested in the military-industrial complex, on and on, into the lifetimes of our great-great-grandchildren and beyond, without so much as a by your leave. Since when did Prime Ministers, especially unelected and unwanted Prime Ministers of no demonstrable ability, entitle themselves to committing tax-paying citizens of the future, people as yet unborn, to the enabling of corrupt and spurious enterprises that might as well be promised to last forever? As I say, they regard us with utter contempt and no longer even bother to conceal the fact. We've apparently arrived at the point in time where those we did not vote for simply decide among themselves what forever will look like and then get about the business of making it so at our expense. And don't for a moment think the so-called opposition would do any different. A change of government means no change at all. Those self-appointed overlords feel no more obliged to seek our permission than to seek the go-ahead of the cattle in the fields or the stray dogs in the street. Human life has got that cheap. They give away our money for the slaughter of generations of people we will never know. The parasite class and their puppets care for us not a jot, but they fear us. We've learned by now that we're supposed to welcome a zero-trust society in which we are presumed guilty of something or other until able to prove otherwise. We're to be imprisoned in a cage made possible by digital IDs that, together with round-the-clock surveillance enabled by the sort of tech Rishi Sunak's billionaire father-in-law provides, the keeping of social credit scores and the programming of central bank digital currencies that will place the submissive and the unwitting into one big, world-enclosing rabbit hutch. Many will have heard of the panopticon, the prison architecture designed by 18th century English philosopher Jeremy Bentham that leaves inmates no option but to assume they're being watched at all times by guards they can't see. George Orwell had the panopticon in mind when he wrote in 1984 of an entire world turned into one dystopian hellscape of surveillance and its attendant paranoia. Quote, "There was, of course, no way of knowing whether you were being watched at any given moment. You had to live in the assumption that every sound you made was overheard and, except in darkness, every movement scrutinised." Less well known, perhaps, is that before finishing his design for the ultimate prison, Bentham travelled aboard a slave ship, so that slavery has always been in the deepest foundations of totalitarian dreams of keeping watch over untrustworthy humankind. In an increasingly frenzied bid to have us look the other way, the would-be dictators are throwing everything they've got at us. Disease X is among their latest fear porn. Anonymous this time, a to whom it may concern virus. And also more mRNA, that gift that keeps on giving, ready to be injected into livestock and the rest of our food so there can be no avoiding it. And bombs dropped on Yemen, one of the poorest countries in the world, under attack from US and UK-backed Saudi Arabia for nearly a decade. Hundreds of thousands of civilians are dead there by war, disease and starvation. Are we all to be herded like cattle? And towards what exactly? Towards the end times? Certainly feels like it. Which is to be the final straw? Where is the tipping point that will have enough of us cry, enough? When the warmongers launch World War III? War with Iran, which has had the hawks of Washington salivating for yet more decades? Or will it be open war with Russia, with China? Forever wars, always confidently predicted, in the same way another pandemic is apparently a dead cert. A person must wonder where all that certainty comes from. It's insane. They're insane. And we in turn must be mad if we continue to listen to them. Even the weather's against them, exposing more of their nonsense. Northern Europe shivered in a biting cold the climate alarmists didn't dare contemplate. It takes enough effort as it is to hoax the entire world about global boiling without the challenge of persuading the billions to look away from claims by some that the ice in the Arctic Sea is at its greatest extent in 21 years. And when the only record temperatures in prospect are those colder than a well-digger's ass. Fortunately, there are plenty of newspapers filled with desperate declarations that the cold doesn't matter. Pay no attention to the snow and ice. The planet is still about to spontaneously combust as soon as it thaws out. The deepest cold snap for years doesn't mean anything. Newspapers that are fit only for lighting cosy fires with. Is the truth now only what those with the most money say it is? Now more than ever we must be on guard, because what's at stake is life itself. Among us now, riding shotgun with the rest of those committed to the anti-human agenda, are the transhumanists. For them, humankind itself has come to the end of the road, or at least to a fork in the road. Down one path lies the continuation of the species that's the greatest miracle we know of in the universe. Us. Fragile, right enough, as all miracles are. As others have pointed out, we have neither claws nor fangs, naked of fur or fleece, hearts and lungs cradled only by elegant baskets of ribs, but blessed beneath thin caps of bone with brains that comprehend time itself and that have vouchsafed the universe the opportunity to contemplate itself for perhaps the first time in 14 billion years. We're already capable of anything and everything, and yet the tech gurus with their soldering irons and circuit boards think they can do better. Down the other fork then lies the future envisioned by those who see only imperfect, incomplete, soulless lab rats available for fixing, a tinkering made possible by their patented, profitable technology. Those with that augmentation in mind have already started slipping silicon chips beneath the skins of wide-eyed early adopters. Life has been made disposable, expendable, all in pursuit of the greater good. Only psychopaths talk about the greater good. What they mean and what they want is what's good for them at the expense of others. If other lives, millions and billions of lives, must be set aside for the good of those with money and power, then so be it. So I ask again, why would anyone still listen to the nonsense of Davos man and woman and their bought and paid for stooges in governments around the world? Do you remember knowingly surrendering to a kakistocracy, which is to say government by the very worst in society? I don't. We've been mugged for our energy, for our money and for our food. Who on earth surrenders the food supply to people who never once got their hands dirty sowing seeds, caring for livestock? Those people with a penchant for private jets are not farmers in the same way that Bill Gates is not a virologist or any kind of expert in the immune system. Among the many things Bill Gates is not, he's not a farmer either, and yet he's also made himself the biggest private landowner in the United States. Is it because he wants to control the use of all those fertile acres and so what people might eat? Here's the thing, it should be obvious to anyone with their eyes open that the powerful don't care about life, about our lives. Right now, with 500,000 or more already dead and cold in Ukrainian clay, the governments of the West have more recently been shrugging their shoulders at the deaths of tens of thousands in the Middle East. It's not manna that falls from heaven onto babies in Gaza, but white phosphorus that burns them to dust. And so, pause for a moment and wonder who will be the soldiers and the casualties of the next war? Me, you, my children, your children. The fork in the road we must choose, the road down which we must walk, is one where we respect at all times the unique and irreplaceable value of human life itself,